3 target with my partially built, partially armored fleet for 6 minutes and 24 seconds of repair. I'm sure I could have tried a second time and got this for instant map, but I wanted to show you a relatively decent average run with 1 or 2 mistakes. The primary objective of this one, of course, is to show you the techniques to use against the individual turrets here, and while the general build style with a high evade flagship does matter, the exact upgrade level, armor level, weapon rarity, etc. is really not too important. Let's go ahead and get started. I like to enter the 103 from the top left. Now what you're going to see is that I probably entered it from the bottom left and was a little bit too low. And you can see that the first turret type I'm going to engage here is this one with a firing arc. You should never be in this, and I'll show you what happens if you're in this later. So what I'm going to do is go through and hit it from the back side of the turret, always recommended, and that will remove all damage from this one. I do actually have to kill one of the larger shrouded buildings on the top platform, which is probably the first one you could hit. And while I'm doing this one, there are a few different turret types to be aware of. One of those is the radioactive radioactive thrower that I just killed. That one, the thrower, is a decently high threat in the target, not as quite high of a threat as the ballistic turret, because that one does have a larger range. And for those two, the thrower as well as the ballistic turret, make sure you stay moving against those ones. And then the short-range Scoville Gatling gun turret, you should be able to outrange every single time. I do get into range of this one a little bit later, not the end of the world. And then the only other turret type to worry about this one in this target, there's the center launchers. Those are a little bit of a different story. The only other one to worry about is why I have high evade on the flagship, and that is the radioactive launcher, the phlogiston launcher style turret. And that does king killer and accuracy. If you don't have any evade on the flagship, it will still hit the flagship first and shockwave the flag onto the entire fleet. If you do have high evade and on the flagship specifically, because of the higher base armor points and the fact that King Killer is on the turret, it will basically miss every single shot. 99% of shots will miss because of the insanely high evade that I have built out on the flagship. You will also notice that my flagship has a slightly lower range and also has some mortars on it, which make for an interesting auto problem in the 102, but that's a different story. Now, once you kill that first platform I got close to, the center is now unshrouded, and you can go through and kill this one pretty easily. Make sure you kill both of the big command center buildings first before you go towards the core, otherwise the center orange ring will do way too much damage to you. And then the only other turret type I mentioned is that ballista launcher type thing, which I just killed. You should never take damage from those ones. In general, to minimize damage, you want to stay moving against the ballistic turret that is shooting at me right now. You want to stay moving against the radioactive thrower turret, which again is shooting at me right now. Outrange these Scoville Gatling guns, which are not the end of the world. You know, you can outrange them, but if you do get in range, it's actually not horrible. And then the King Killer and High Evade takes care of the other phlogiston turret. And it's really just putting it all together and timing and the path of the target that does matter. And I'm showing you basically combining these techniques against different turret clusters. So stay moving against that ballistic guy, and then I am in range actually of the really big heavy one, but it looks to me like it missed both times because I stayed moving. So that is a useful thing for you to know if I am seeing that correctly. So hit those big ballista type ones from the back, outrange the Gatling guns. I got into range right here, but I still ended up with a pretty decent repair. Outrange those guys, hit the other ones from the back, use your splash and ramp up if at all possible. You can see I got that radioactive thrower guy halfway dead before he started shooting at me because of the splash and the ramping damage and the ramping splash from my built-in heavy weapon. The built-in weapon does increase your DPS by a ton, which means that you don't have to spend as much time doing fancy circles like I am right here, trying to get into range of something and then do a circle and keep going around. I eventually decided that that wasn't too smart, and I was going to circle around the outside and hit a few different turret clusters. You can see I learned from going into range of the big turret one time, and now I'm going to do circles around the whole outside while keeping this one selected, which you can shift click by the way. and engaged a few platforms. Again, against those radioactive throwers, just stay moving, and even with a not all legendary weapons, you can kill it pretty easily. Scoville Gatling guns outrange those ones. Phlogiston launchers don't really matter. You should generally try and kill it more quickly if possible, because your flagship does take some damage. And then, of course, there is the little radioactive thrower. Again, just stay moving against those ones, which I don't do a great job of every single time because I shift-click the damage turret. Yeah, those are not the end of the world. Now, the flagship does have a slightly faster combat speed if you're copying my exact same build, which means it does take a little bit of driving, I guess, finesse to do in terms of trying to outrange something from the side and then pivot instead of directly from the front, because the Gatling range is pretty sensitive. Let's go ahead and take a look at the damage, the battle report, and the build and see what we have here. Looks like the overall damage is generally low. Out of the damage I took, 12% is ballistic, 11% is radioactive in terms of the resisted values. Repair time is 6 minutes and 24 seconds, which is very, very close to instant base repair. Not quite. As you can see, I'm still missing a bunch of armor on most of my ships, which I'm sure I will eventually add on with the TLC when it comes back for the third or fourth time around. I just have been a little bit lazy about doing that, and as you can see, if I can do this with a mix of upgraded ships, no cap ships by the way, I've got a U2 ship in there, you can probably manage to do it as well, and most of you probably have armor and even some better weapons than I do. This video is out a day later or so than usual. I did want to make sure I got some raid content out to you here, and if you have any comments on this, any questions, go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below, and keep an eye out on the channel for some other raid videos coming out here. With that said, until next time, I want to give a huge thank you to every channel member whose name appears on the end screen now. They're helping make videos like this one possible. And this is Derpy, signing out, helping you be a better pirate.